one of the experiences I had, it was a young woman. She knocks on the door. She goes, "Can I come in?" I was like, "Of course." She comes in and she goes, "I feel so silly, but I'm 15 weeks pregnant. I feel so embarrassed, but my boyfriend's abusing me." So we brought her in right away. I sat with her and she said, "Okay, my boyfriend has dropped me off. He's circling the clinic. He really wants me to get this abortion and I don't want to get it." That's so heartbreaking. But she didn't kill her baby. I was like, yeah. And that might sound a little crass or unsympathetic, but I actually think it's very sympathetic because she doesn't have that weight of what she did. And she had that time with her child.
Hi folks, my name is Cam. I am the host of the Pro-Life Guys podcast, and this is another episode of Humans of the Pro-Life Movement, a show where we try to highlight some of the incredible folks who are contributing in different ways, different capacities, and different locations to the pro-life movement. Today I'm joined by Meg Woodard. Meg, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I am living the dream. Meg is a fellow Calgarian with me. Are you born and raised Calgary, or did you guys move to Calgary?
I am.
One of the few.
No, born and raised. A lot of not a lot actually, most of us were born in Calgary. A few of my siblings were born in the States. Two of my brothers served in the American military.
Cool.
Actually, so we're kind of a hodgepodge. We're a mixed bunch.
Cool. Very cool. Well, you're here in Calgary now. It's been really cool getting to work with you on different pro-life initiatives and whatnot. And the $1 million question, have you heard Ben Shapiro rap?
Yes. And I love him. Well,
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I love this.
Okay.
I love this because I think some people are making fun of him, but he's making fun of himself. He did it first.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, you can like it for what it is. Exactly. And it's a work of art. It's so good. And I genuinely think Tom MacDonald is like a really good rapper. So, for a white guy. So,
for a white guy. Love it.
He's like the Eminem of like conservative rap.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that. So I literally just finished doing a recording. I know that I'm wearing a different t-shirt than I was during my Ben Shapiro Tom MacDonald reaction video, because I keep a stock of t-shirts here in my office for when I do multiple recordings on the same day. I just did my reaction video, which I think came out for the listeners a couple weeks ago, probably. And I think that you hit it right on the head of like, he's making a joke. Like Ben Shapiro is making fun of the music industry, being like, "Oh, all of you musicians, Nicki Minaj in particular, you guys work so hard to like pander to your audiences and whatnot. Like, guess what? I did this as a joke and I'm going to be number one rapper." Like, I think it's great.
Yeah. And it's also because he does have such a good following that they're going to support him. They like what he's doing. And then also, did you watch his reactions to reactions? That was the best thing because he's laughing at himself. And the line he kept saying was, "I bring joy to so many people. Like, look what I'm doing." And he's enjoying it with everyone, even people who don't like him. So I think he's right. He brought a lot of joy. People talked about it.
Yeah.
So, and like the line, "I just did this for fun."
Exactly. Now download this song and make it a Billboard #1.
Yes.
I think it's great. I think that it's a great jab at the music industry and the culture of music industry, which I think, and I've never said this before, and I'm curious on your thoughts about it because I know that you got a political mind as well. Like, I don't want to liken Ben Shapiro to Donald Trump a ton, but I feel like Ben Shapiro's foray into the music industry, like you think about the music industry and how so many of these people are like lifelong musicians and like there's a particular culture and there's a way of going about it and all this kind of stuff. And Ben Shapiro just like parachutes in of like, "Hey, I was bored," and decided to do this like mashup with Tom MacDonald. There are similarities to Donald Trump just like parachuting into the political scene and being like, "You know what? Like, you guys have been lifelong politicians. You've been grinding it. You've been scrubbing your social media, all this kind of stuff. Like, I am just who I am. And I'm going to parachute in here and do this." And not that he did his presidency as a joke, like Ben Shapiro did this song as a joke, but like, I think that there's something to be said for the levity that Ben Shapiro brings into the music industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think especially within Hollywood, within the arts, we're being preached at a lot lately. And within movies, I want to watch a movie to enjoy something else, like to escape a bit. I listen to music to go into a different world. I read a book to enter that world. So stop preaching about me. And I also don't like being given the punchline too early. So being told what to think.
Yeah,
So you're giving me the punchline at the start, or the answer to a question that I didn't even ask. I
yeah,
don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I just constantly being preached at is getting old and boring. And
totally.
I know like he's doing it on the conservative side, but it's funny
It,
and
it
it's yeah.
Exactly. It's funny. It's different. It's a different voice, different angle, all that kind of thing. You saying that, it makes me think of Ricky Gervais hosting, I think it was the Golden Globes several years ago. And his like,
Thank
you
your
know what?
God.
Well, so that, but also, yeah, thank your God. And then, like, don't come up here and tell people
Shut up.
viewing what they should think about politics. You don't know anything about
Yeah.
living in America. You know literally
Yeah.
nothing. So don't come up
Yeah.
here and give a political spiel. Just come, accept your award, thank your God, thank your producer, and get off the stage. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like Whoopi Goldberg being on The View telling like the common man, why are you worried about feeding your family or housing? Like, it's better to have Biden in, stop your complaining. And it's like, who the heck do you think you are to lecture the common man? Like,
totally.
that is so entitled.
Totally. Okay, so we've gotten way off of the track of what humans of the pro-life movement usually is about, which is totally cool because I think this is part of being a human of the pro-life movement and like showcasing some of the personality within. And we're going to loop back to this because, and I'm going to give you the warning this time. I made the mistake when I was early in my humans of the pro-life movement, putting people on the spot for like, you alluded to music and books. I'm not going to put you on the spot right away. Be like, so what are you reading? I'm going to talk to you about that at the end of the episode,
Mm.
just so you know, so you can
Okay.
prep your answer for that. But no, give
Okay.
me an update. I obviously know your role in the pro-life movement, but I'm assuming that the vast majority of people tuning in have probably never heard of you before, and that's a shame because you're a wonderful person and a wonderful part of the pro-life movement. But like, bring it for somebody who doesn't know you and your story. What does your journey look like to be in the pro-life movement? Is
Okay.
this something that was born and bred into you? Is this something that kind of came about in a moment of clarity in university, or what does your journey into the pro-life movement look like?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm very blessed, and I know this. I'm very blessed to have my parents who were very active in the pro
Mm.
life network themselves in the pro life movement. My mom got involved when she was in university, and that ultimately convicted her of her faith. She was raised Catholic nominally, not practicing very much. And then my dad also, he fell away from his faith. He's also Catholic, and then kind of through the pro life movement, also came back to his faith, which was really amazing. Um, and then so, and then even growing up, my parents were active members. My dad was a journalist and would often write articles on controversial topics. So being controversial was not foreign. And then as a child, I have very distinct memories being across from the abortion clinic with my mom and her friends and just being with them praying. I don't know if I fully knew what we were doing, but I don't ever recall a time where I was sat down and talked about abortion. It was just known, and we always prayed for the babies in the abortion clinic as a family. Um, so then laying that foundation was crucial. And then I do think when it comes to faith, when it comes to these beliefs, there's a moment in everyone's life where you can't rely on your parents. You have to take it on yourself. Um, so probably when I was in high school, I I was taking in a lot of material, and I really loved Stephanie Gray. So I would listen to her a lot. She did a talk with Google, and I remember watching that, and I was so impressed. And I'd known her before, like I'd known of her before it. Um, and I'd gone to a crash course with her. And then once I'd left high school, I made kind of what I call my colorful friends. So they and like loved them dearly. They had no faith themselves. A lot of them living alternative lifestyles, which I definitely did not agree with, but we would have conversations. And so that was really good. And it was very good for me to be around that because I think it cemented my beliefs because I saw an alternative way of living and it was not attractive. It was very sad. And through that, I had a close friend have an abortion, and she was within her second trimester. And that was a pivotal moment because it felt like it became personal. And it's not about me. It wasn't about me, but I saw her grief and I saw her hurt. And that was, yeah, it was a time of sadness for sure. And what was sad also was within kind of our friend group, the belief was she had done the best thing for her. So she needs to get over it and live life. We need to go out. She needs to be partying because you did a good thing. And no one was recognizing her deep hurt. Like she was really hurting. And we would often have talks about everything. And yeah, so that struck something in me. And then I ended up actually going to Florida with CCBR because of that, truly. I think I felt a little helpless within that situation. And not that I think, oh, I could have done something, but who knows? So I went to Florida CCBR and I loved it. It was so good. So anytime, I think it was actually the last time before COVID. So I'm not sure if it's happened since.
At time of recording, it is happening in like 3 days. I am flying down to Florida on Friday.
Okay,
Time of recording. So
amazing.
it is.
Amazing.
This is our first year back since 2020, though.
That's amazing. I keep trying to get my younger sister to go, so maybe one day.
Yep.
So that was really good for me. Really loved that. And then always, even through high school, I was always going out outside of the abortion clinic, praying there. I had a few run-ins with the director of the abortion clinic. So
Okay.
she and I have talked a few times outside when I've not been standing where I'm supposed to be. Totally mistakenly. So yeah, so yes, okay, so Florida, doing that, and then through different church groups also. Okay, and then how did I personally, after Florida, get involved? Great question. Thank you for asking. um, okay, so this is still in some ways unclear to me because how everything ended up happening in terms of getting this job that I currently have, because it feels so providential. So I was working for a property management company, and there's an organization. The organization I work for is called Allies, which is the Alberta Life Issues Educational Society. They run the Back Porch in Edmonton, which sits across the street from the abortion clinic. So they run a pro-life house. I think I said the wrong thing. They run a pro-life house that sits across the street from the abortion clinic in Edmonton. So they minister to women who are on their way to the abortion clinic. We can't do sidewalk ministering in Calgary, so this is the only way to do it legally. So people will often compare us to a pregnancy care center, but we're not like that. We will provide resources to send them to a pregnancy care center or something like that, but we're kind of the first line of defense. So that's what they were doing in Edmonton. I did not know this, but they were looking to expand into Calgary. So there was going to be a meeting on Easter Sunday, and I'm not quite sure how. Easter Sunday of, I want to say, 2022. And I don't know how, but someone had mentioned my name, that, oh, she'd probably like to be in on it. I still don't know who did. Yeah, I haven't asked. And so I wasn't actually going to go because I was like, my family's here. It's Easter Sunday. Who books a meeting on Easter Sunday?
Exactly.
And then my mom was like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But my dad said, no, I think you should do this. So I joined the Zoom call, was hearing about what's happening in Calgary, was really excited, but was also free about my commentary. I didn't really have any skin in the game completely. So I was like, this is what I think you should do. This is what I think you shouldn't do. I think you need to work. I think the pro-life movement in general needs to work on getting the younger generation involved. So I kind of, was very free with what I said. Gabrielle, the executive director of Allies, was on the call, and she reached out to me and asked if we could get together. So she just sent me a text, and we actually met up for a beer. And she was telling me about everything in Calgary. I was getting really excited. I was thinking of people I could put her in contact with. And then she said, so we're looking to hire someone in Calgary. And I was like, that's amazing. Let me think of some people. And she like looked at me. I was like, no, like you. And I was like, oh, dang it. I was like, what a privilege. So I was like, okay. She kind of explained everything to me. I was like, give me a week to think about it. Got in my car, drove straight to my parents' house, and talked to my dad, told him everything. And he was like, you want to take it? I was like, yeah, but I don't know if it's very prudent. It'd be a bit of a pay cut, all of those things. And he was like, when else in your life can you do something like this? Like, this is a moment to be, you're young, you're single. It's very easy to be selfish. So you need to work on being selfless. And this is a great opportunity for that. And I did genuinely really want to do it. But I tend to jump into things quickly. So I did want to be prudent. So then I think I called her that night and said, you can give me a week, but I'll take it.
Oh, okay.
So then, yeah. So then I came on board. The 2 days before I was meant to sign my contract, I got in a car accident. I was hit by a truck. That was super exciting. I was like, that's a great way to start a job.
Yeah.
I was in my car. I should say I was in my car hit by a truck.
Still.
Yeah, still not good. Even if you're in a car, I was in a little car. Not a great feeling. Gabrielle was like, oh, we can postpone your signing. Like, you don't have to sign a contract right away. And I was like, no, I need to sign it now. I'm getting angry. So yeah, signed the contract. And then I'm working in Calgary. So we have a house that is 2 doors down from the abortion clinic called Lifehouse. We're currently running educational events. And when we got the house, definitely needed some work. I had never renovated a house in my life. So I quickly learned it's not what you know, but who you know. And the community was really good to us. So it's been really amazing. Yeah.
That's so cool. And so formally you are the Lifehouse Coordinator. Is that your job title? Yeah.
Yeah, my job title is Kensington Coordinator. I'll say Calgary Coordinator.
Gotcha.
Lifehouse Coordinator. All works.
Gotcha. I mean, job titles are what you want them. I think often of our friend Jonathan Van Maren, who has often said like whatever you want to call yourself, like just call yourself that, and that kind of thing. So no, that's so cool, and that's such a cool journey. Thank you for sharing that. I think that everyone's journey is a little bit different, and the fact that so many personal touch points in your family relationship, your friends' abortion experience, and how that was transformative, and going down to Florida, like the number of different touch points. This isn't something that like you read about on an advertisement. You're like, oh, maybe I'll dedicate my life to the pro-life movement. I'm sure there's some people that have done that, but like it's often a winding journey that difficult to know what the next step is. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious. So you've been doing the Lifehouse gig for a couple of years now, and whether from that or whether from even just in general, your experience witnessing outside of the Kensington abortion facility here in Calgary, are there experiences, are there things that have happened that stand out in your mind as memorable experiences, things that whether they're profound joy or profound sadness that come along with them. Like, what anchors do you have from your experience being so close in vicinity to the abortion facility here in Calgary?
Yeah. So actually, I know you're asking about Calgary, but this is
Just
at
in
the
general, yeah.
forefront of my head. So I was just in Edmonton for
Okay.
2 weeks, um, doing client-facing work there.
Okay.
So I was the one answering the door, speaking to women who were on their way to the clinic at Edmonton, and I just, yeah, it was a good week. It was a good 2 weeks, but
Okay.
definitely at the end of it, exhausting. So one of the experiences I had, it was a young woman. She knocks on the door. She goes, "Can I come in?" I was like, "Of course." She comes in and she goes, "I feel so silly, but I'm 15 weeks pregnant. I feel so embarrassed, but my boyfriend's abusing me." And that's the thing, is that's not often what we see.
Yeah.
Those cases are, I think our coordinator in Edmonton, who's been there for a few years, said this was the first case she got of abuse, actually.
Wow.
It's not usually what we see. So we brought her in right away. I sat with her and she said, "Okay, my boyfriend has dropped me off. He's circling the clinic. He really wants me to get this abortion, and I don't want to get it." She said, "I saw your house and I saw the signs, and so I decided to come on over instead." And so I affirmed her in her bravery for doing that. And we just sat, we talked, we offered to call the police. We took all of those steps. She's already reported him before. She was not interested in doing so again. We gave her information for shelters. We walked all through that. I just want to say that. And then the next step is, okay, what do we do? You're pregnant. You seem to want to have your baby. You're really unsure. You're not having support from him. So she was kind of bouncing between abortion, adoption, even, and parenting herself. And she had friends in Edmonton who were very willing to help her parent. Oftentimes, we find people don't choose adoption. People seem to think it's the worst of all the options, which is sad, but it's definitely a hard decision. So we sat with her. We kind of went through everything. Sorry, it was like a 3-day process, so I have to remember the order of everything. So that day, basically, we just spoke about her situation. We made an appointment for her to come back to us the next day, but we were not sending her back with her boyfriend. So her friend actually came and picked her up, and she, from that moment, and since we've been dealing with helping her and being with her, as far as I know, has had no contact with the boyfriend, which has been really good, and is very impressed that she's been able to do that. She came in the next day, and we'd actually called an adoption rep to explain the process of adoption because we wanted her to have a full picture of everything. So she explained about the adoption process. She had really good questions. She she was really engaged with that. And then one of the next steps was also to find a family lawyer so she would know what parenting would look like, because he does have rights to his child. She doesn't want anything to do with him. So what can we do in terms of that relationship? And I wasn't aware of any family lawyer, or I didn't know any. So I actually reached out to the community. I think I made like an Instagram post, and the amount of people who reached out was like amazing. It was so good with contacts. So I was able to contact a family lawyer. I spoke on the phone with him for like 45 minutes. He gave me a bunch of information, and he offered to do some work pro bono, which was really, really amazing. And we scheduled a Zoom call with him for our mom. And as she was at the house with us on day 2 or day 3, she even had lunch with us. We got her lunch. We're sitting there, and she's eating her lunch, and she looks up at me and she goes, "I think we're going to figure this out. Like, I really think we're going to figure this out, and I think it's going to be okay." And it was just kind of about calming her down from everything, and just like, "You're really rushing into something. Let's take our time and let's talk through everything. We want you to have a full picture, and we want you to make an informed decision." And I said, "Yeah, we're totally going to figure this out." And the whole time, she kept talking about doing the best for her child, which was really beautiful. So she one of her things as well is she was told by her doctor that she had a thin uterine wall, I guess, or lining. I can't quite remember. And so if she had an abortion, there'd be a high chance that she would not be able to have kids in the future. It was quite risky for her. Um, and that also was playing with her a bit. So so she wanted to do what was best for her child, and she knew she wanted children, but one thing she kept saying, she said, a child deserves a father, and a good father. Hence why she was considering adoption as well. And so we're sitting there. She goes, I think we're going to figure this out. And I looked at her and I said, I don't know if this is helpful to say, but I think you're going to be a really good mom. I said, you're so protective of your baby already. You're doing what you can for this baby. Like, I think you're going to be really good. And she like looked up for me and her lunch, and she had the biggest smile on her face. And she was like, thank you so much. It was like, you can do this. Like, you're already thinking about this child. Those mom instincts, they kicked in, you know? So she was extraordinarily happy. And then I booked an appointment for her with the lawyer. And then I get an email from her and she'd miscarried. And she was 15 weeks along. And so that was heartbreaking. But I kept in contact with her and emailing her. And I think even just us being there with throughout that process as well, every time she emails me, she's like, thank you so much for your love and support. I know I can count on you guys. Like, thank you so much. And so that she's not alone in that as well has been really good. So that was heartbreaking because it felt like we were just making headway and we were helping her so much. And then that happened. But I was telling this to my mom, and she said, that's so heartbreaking. But she didn't kill her baby. I was like, yeah. And that might sound a little crass or unsympathetic, but I actually think it's very sympathetic because she doesn't have that weight of what she did. And she had that time with her child. And yeah, so that's how I keep thinking about it is, she had that time with her child, and she has no blame at all for anything.
Yeah, which I mean, we can not only spend multiple episodes, and we've spent multiple episodes about the shockwaves of post-abortion syndrome and all that kind of thing, and the ripple effects that it sends throughout
Yeah.
all of not only the individual of the mom's life, but also through all of the other people involved in the decision, through the impact and relationships that she has and how that impacts her relationships afterwards. Like it's tragic, obviously, that child died through miscarriage. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that the difference, but for the mom, for everybody else involved as well, is so profound for the child as well. That's such a
Yeah.
beautiful story of witness. I appreciate not only you sharing them, but even more so you and the entire Allies ministry that was there for her and didn't
Mm.
try to cart her off to whatever like that. I don't. Sorry, I'm not speaking clearly at all because it's such a beautiful story. But like that time
Thank you.
component, that encounter component of
Yeah.
like being such a massive factor. I'm curious if you could even speak more to the role that time plays in the decisions
Yeah.
that get made or that don't get made, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because what we do takes an emotional toll on us,
Yeah.
obviously, but also we emotionally connect with the people, and you have to be with them. You give of your time, you give of yourself, and that takes work and that's
Yeah.
hard. And so people don't want to do that, right? And so people will say, going to the abortion, like that's the right thing to do because we're caring for women. Well, no, if we were caring for women, we'd look at not just the immediate problem, quote
Yeah.
unquote, we'd look at her life, we'd look at everything, her as a whole person.
Yeah.
And so we do what is best for her genuinely. And what's best for someone at times is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard in a moment for sure. But we know the outcome in the future will be better, and she'll have her child. How can that be wrong?
Yeah.
Um, and oftentimes people what we find is people will take a pregnancy test. It's unexpected, maybe. They don't quite know what to do, and they just call the clinic right away.
Yeah.
And then they go get an abortion. And if they come to us, let's take a minute. Let's think about this. What is, and we also make them kind of or ask them to explain to us, what is your reasoning for this? Like, really, what problems are you facing? And if they're big problems, how can we help you to make the best decision for you, which we know is never abortion. So yeah, it's just about, let's take this one step at a time.
Yeah, and I love what you say as well about the isolated versus connected moments, right? Like I feel like so often in
Mm,
culture now, I mean, when we talk about glory days, when we talk about um, our life, we often think about it through the lens of the snapshot photo album kind of world, which is ironic because very few people have photo albums anymore. But like this idea of capturing this moment within the context of a still shot picture rather than the greater scope of let's talk about not only the entire person but your life and the trajectory and this and that and
yeah,
how different moments all connect together and how this moment doesn't have to be a change of direction necessarily, that this child isn't going to ruin your life, that your life is not defined by the moment of you standing on the stage receiving your diploma. Your life isn't defined
yeah,
by the award hanging in your doctor's office or any this, that, or the other thing. Your life is not defined by the still shot pictures that you have in your mind about the future, but rather a continuum of moments that form a symphony all together. You can't take any one note and say that it's the most important note in the symphony. And I know that this is getting way beyond
mm.
um, what I am qualified to
No,
talk
it's
about,
so
being a
true.
non-musical person. But like, I think it's so beautiful,
Same.
the time component and extending the moment into the rest of one's life. I think is so important and so cool to think
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
So
And what's also interesting is, um, sometimes it's a very simple fix when
yeah.
someone comes in. We had a lady even say her reasoning. Again, we always try to pinpoint what the true reason is.
Hmm.
And her reasoning was, she flies for work. She
Yeah.
wasn't sure if she could get on a plane. We looked into it. We told her up until when she could stop and or when she couldn't travel, which is actually pretty late
Yeah.
into the pregnancy you can travel. She goes, "Oh, I guess I don't have to get the abortion." And that was it.
Yeah.
She accidentally came into our place instead of the
Yeah.
abortion clinic. They wouldn't have told her that.
No.
And that was it. And she didn't have to, or she didn't kill her baby.
Yeah.
And that's also just a bit of a bizarre one,
Yeah.
because I think we also paint the picture that, I don't know, it's a 14-year-old girl who was brutally raped, who's on the streets, and it was an uncle or something. We paint this picture, and you know that can happen, and that's awful. And we help that girl, and we get her out of that situation 100%. But that's, in our experience, that's not what we're seeing.
Hmm.
That's very much not what we're seeing.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's such a wide array of people that you are encountering. Like I'm sure there's a delicate art to and it is so unfair to liken in any way what you're doing with clients to what I did while I worked for 3 weeks at Canadian Tire. But I worked for 3 weeks in Canadian Tire in the hardware department because my dad's a carpenter and I had done a little bit of carpentry stuff.
Okay.
And there was two kinds of people that I dealt with in the hardware department. I would deal with the people who had no idea what they were doing. And they would come in on Labor Day and be like, "Hey, so I want to build a new house. Like, what do I do?" And be like, okay, I'm a 16-year-old kid. I don't know how to teach you how
But
to
I
build a
don't know.
house. But then, so you get those people, and then you get the people that were
Yeah.
like crazy professionals, and like, I need a whatever, whatever,
Mm.
whatever from this water pump that's from Hungary in the 1930s, and like, do you have this? And like, the amount of time that I would be making conversation with people while I was Googling what they were talking about, of like, what brand name did you say that part was again? Like, as I try to figure out, like, carry on a
Yeah.
conversation so you don't know that I'm Googling what you're talking about. And I say that all because like I'm sure that you guys get such a wide array of people that you
Oh yeah.
encounter, and you're not just a travel agent trying to like, okay, well, thank you. This is where you want to go. I'm going to type in your thing. Like, here's the best option for you. There's so much of it is
Mm.
relational, but you are
Yeah.
also responsible for trying to answer some of those questions of how late can you fly and can I complete this degree online, and things like that. Like I,
Yeah.
we're 35 minutes into this episode already, but if I could ask of like, how, what is your philosophy even preparing for an interaction? Is it entirely like it's all about cultivating relationship and then we'll answer their questions afterwards? Is it kind of the two together? Is it I need to give them an answer for them to want to build a relationship? Or like, how do you guys approach your philosophy to interacting with somebody
Mhm.
walking through the door?
So it'd be a great question for coordinator Anita, 'cause she's definitely deals
Okay.
with it more than I do at this time.
Okay.
That being said, when people walk in, they often think we are the abortion clinic. So we have just about 30 seconds to engage them. And we never lie to them. We never pretend to be the clinic. But off the bat, we try to offer them information. So can I talk you through the abortion procedure and show you what it is? So with the one girl who unfortunately had the miscarriage, we actually started to watch. It's a non-graphic a video of what the abortion procedure is. We got about 5 minutes in, and she was like, "I can't watch this." She goes, "That's my baby. That's what they're gonna do to my baby." Like she knew. So we tried to go through that with them. Um, so you're right. It completely depends who the volunteer who's speaking to them is, like their approach, what they can do. You have to be, I guess, genuine in how you are, um, and then also what the person in front of you needs. So we actually are quite picky about who we have volunteer within this role because it's very important. And it's very specific. Not everyone can do it, and that's totally fair. Sometimes I feel like I can't do it, depending on the day. Um, but I do definitely think, above all, you have to see her and her child as like a whole person. You have to see them, and I think prayer is a huge component of that. So even if you don't think it's going well, if you're just there for the person, and I think also like we've had a few girls in the past kind of come in and say, I prayed for a sign. This is obviously my sign. And so sometimes people want to be convinced out of it type thing. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm quite answering the question, but
No, that's so helpful. And I hope that everyone in the audience can appreciate that of like it is about the human connection and it's about the person in front of you and it's about the person that you are. And that there
yeah,
isn't going to be a formulaic response for all people should say this to all people. There isn't a right
yeah,
first question to ask or whatever. Generally that it's almost always an understanding who you are and understanding who they are and trying to, yeah, encounter them in at that level of person to person and
yeah,
facilitate that. So no, I think that's bang on. Again, Meg, I know that we could talk all afternoon, but I'll maybe we'll do another episode here. I want to ask you one final kind of, again, fairly
yeah.
open-ended question before we go. I mean, from your vantage point, you've had a very involved role in the pro-life movement for a long time. What needs to happen going forward? What are areas of like, hey, if we had an influx of people or time or money in the pro-life movement in this area or another area, it'd be really cool what we could accomplish. Like when you look at the landscape of the abortion debate, of the pro-life movement, of the culture war, and you say, okay, if I had extra people, extra money, extra time, I could apply it in this area or that area. Where do you see we have a cool opportunity, or where do you think we might be developing a blind spot and might need to address something of a risk? I know that's kind of a big question, but I'm curious, just from your
Mm.
vantage point, where
Yeah.
do you see the risk or opportunity for the pro-life movement right now?
So I don't know if I have like a solution
Yeah,
to a bigger problem, but I see a specific problem, if that makes
please.
sense.
Yeah.
So within, I think kind of I'm a Gen Z, I think is the proper name. So I think within my my generation and the upcoming generation, there's a lot of despair, and this is definitely not PC, I think, to say, but I think this is the generation to kill their parents in the sense of euthanize them because of the fact that people's relationships within their families are so broken. They spend so little time with their families, with their parents, that it's like, you didn't care for me as a child. Why should I care for you as an adult? Um, I think there's a problem there, and I think it's made Gen Zs, we joke about everything, but in such a crass kind of way. So our executive director talks about this. There was a group of young girls who were obviously going to the abortion clinic, and they were taking pictures outside of it, documenting their abortion experience. That's the generation we live in, right? That's like, come with me, like spend a day as I go get my abortion. Here's how you take the abortion pills. Like, let me walk you through it. Like, what? Like, these are young girls. These are young people. So what's making them that way? I think lack of real friendships, lack of like family unity, like strong families. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent right now, so I apologize. But like, that needs to be, I don't know how, but we need to fix like that, like our relationships with our children. So kids go to before school care at like what, 7 a.m. They're there before school, they spend all day at school, then they're in after school care, and then they go to bed. And that's their experience of childhood. And I understand people are in hard positions, and I do get that. But I think that's also wrong. I think we can also say, yes, you're in hard positions, but that's not the ideal in terms of raising children. Again, I don't know what the solution is. Spend time with your kids, love your kids, bring them to church, lay a foundation, prayer. I think we need to like go back to basics. I think sometimes the solution can be just simple. I think we've overcomplicated a lot of things.
Uh, phew, that is one of the best answers I've heard. I think there's so much to that, and I think that honestly dovetails so beautifully with so much of what we've talked about, of like even time, right? Of like,
Yeah.
you don't need to do stuff necessarily as a family. Like, investing time wise in your family
Yeah.
is so valuable, and that can be going for a walk, that can be spending time together, whether that's something as orchestrated as a family vacation or playing board games together, whether
Yeah.
that's just like going for a walk or spending
Yep.
time together. um,
Yeah.
an age of encounter is going to really
Mm,
change the trajectory of where we're at as a society, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I think as I'm getting older, the thing I'm most grateful for is my dad reading to me at night, me and my sisters,
Yeah.
reading us stories at night, praying with us before bed, and then my mom being home.
Yeah.
Like, she was with us. And again, it wasn't always easily in different areas. I have 9 siblings,
Yeah.
9, 10 kids. That financially, that's hard in a lot of ways. But my parents always had an emphasis on a good education. And my mom says this. She goes, I didn't play with you guys. She goes, you guys had each other to play. But when you were sick, when you were hurt, when you were overwhelmed, that's when my job came in. You always knew I was there. I could always go to my mom, always. And as I'm getting older, seeing where certain friends, their experience growing up, I'm so thankful for that, because where it should be normal, it's not, you know? I, so I don't know, I recognize how blessed I am. And I don't resent my parents, which I guess is an odd thing for someone my age, because that's all I see.
Yeah. Which is so profound to think about. And I even wonder about the idea of making family goals, right? Like, we all have fitness
Mm,
goals, we all have academic goals and professional goals,
yeah.
and like we all get the fact, like, and I say that because I know a lot of people who will hear what you just said and say, well, I don't have that, or I'm not that person, or like,
Mm,
that's not me.
yeah.
And that's
Mm,
true. You're not that person, and you might not have that, and that might not be where you're at right then. But
mhm,
we set goals for lots of other things and how to get there. And maybe that's where
yeah.
to start. How do you
Yeah.
start? What is your goal as a family? And start thinking about
Yeah.
how to get there. If you say, like, I want to be praying together, but like nobody wants to pray with me ever, like this is an impossibility. How's that any
Yeah.
different than saying like, I want to be my own boss, but nobody wants to work for me, therefore this is a lost cause kind of thing. If you want to pray together every night, then let's start, if that's your goal, then let's talk about how do you
Yeah.
get there? What are the steps that are necessary to get there? And it might take months or years to get there,
Yeah.
just as it might take months or years to get towards your fitness goals or your academic goals or your professional goals. But
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
I do think I think if our aim is heaven, we should be expecting greatness of ourselves and our family. Like that's what we're striving for, right? If that's our end purpose, how do we get there? And what do we do for our family's sake? We expect the best from them. We expect them to be good. So it's for their good,
Yeah,
right? So we expect very little of people nowadays, which is
absolutely.
sad.
That is really sad. And yet a profound note for us to end on. Like, I think
Yeah.
that that's really, really valuable for people to reflect on as we go forward. That it's not all sunshine and roses, that there are conflicts,
Mm-hmm.
not just outside of our doors, but within our own walls. And
Yeah.
I think that it's easy for us as pro-lifers, as conservatives, as Christians to always look into our neighbor's backyard and always want to be of service to our neighbor and to the person around the world. And that's good. But maybe this is gut check time. Maybe this is time to look at our families and look at our relationships that we have with the people that should be closest to us and say, okay, I've been
Yeah.
neglecting this because it's awkward, because it's weird, because of whatever. And I need to sink some time into this.
Yeah.
If things are going to be better,
Yeah.
that if I'm looking at the brokenness of the world around me, how do I make sure that my own family doesn't enter into that same kind of brokenness, and my own relationships don't enter into that same kind of territory that needs a revival of epic proportions? What do I need to do now to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone has what they need? Whew.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah.
Meg, you're the best. I appreciate you for coming on. I had no idea what to expect in this episode. You and I have chatted a bunch about a bunch of different things. I really, really appreciate you coming on and joining me on this. We're going to have to get you back on again. This is great.
Yeah, love to. Lots of fun. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
My pleasure. Folks, I will drop in the show notes below the organization that Meg works with, Allies, and please support them in your prayers, with your finances, with everything that you can offer, whether you're in Calgary and you can help them with the renovations that they're doing at the Lifehouse, or whether you're able to offer them some prayers or financial partnership. Please do that. And don't forget to subscribe to the Pro-Life Guys podcast. Let me know your recommendations and suggestions for whether it's Humans of the Pro-Life Movement or other episodes. And God bless you abundantly wherever you're at, however many hours are left in your day.